you can have access to it. In case that you need information, it's gonna be in the platform. Okay, very good. So let's start the class. I hope that you can see this presentation, right? For today's topic, we have teaching writing to young learners. It means to children, could be for children from 5 to 6 or 5 to 9, that depends on you. Of course, we can adapt the techniques, the activities, in case that you're teaching young learners, like preschoolers, or in case that you are going to teach learners from primary school, you can adapt the activities. Remember that this information is for children. Maybe you want to teach children in the future, or if you want to teach young learners, in case that they are in 5th grade or 6th grade, you can do it, right? Here in the presentation, it says that if you want to participate, you can unmute your micro or write in the chat section. Of course, I'll be able to read the comments that you make, right? So let's start this journey. Before starting, you know that teaching writing, you already saw this topic with me. You know that teaching writing is a very long process, but we're going to see it little by little, right? So for this class, we're going just to talk about the background, about teaching writing, and about the writing process. Next week, we're going to have a session about lesson planning, right? So we're going to have a long, well, it's not that long, the theory, but it's a very interesting information for you, okay? Very good. So let's start this one. Okay. So first of all, the question. This is the main question. What is writing, right? So in the chat, or if you want to speak, what ideas do you know about writing? Okay. So I'm going to leave you 2 minutes for you to write some ideas, right? What ideas do you know about writing? Maybe you have some experiences about this one. So try to participate in the chat group, please. So I'm gonna give you some minutes for you to write something. Very good. So Carmen, you say, I think it is a way to express thoughts, feelings, or some knowledge with words. Very good. Erika, you say, I think it is very important first to start with spelling or to teach how to write the letters and the words. Excellent. So here I noticed that, for example, Carmen, you said that writing is about expressing, right, our information. And maybe for some students might be very easy for them to express ideas in a writing paper, right, in a text. And other classmates, maybe they have the, well, it is easy for them to speak, right, to just say the ideas, speaking, communicating. And well, in this case, we need to teach them how to write the ideas, how to put them, those sentences in a correct order with grammar structure, maybe with a correct spelling, as you mentioned, Erika, also. That first we need to teach them the spelling of the word, right? So imagine if we write how we speak, it will be a mess, right? We need an order, we need a correct spelling, a correct grammar structure in order for you to be understandable. Thank you very much for your participation. So basically in writing, some of us, right, maybe some people, they might think that it is the act of picking up a pencil and forming letters by printing or writing them in cursive, right? You know that before the cursive letter was very popular, right? Right now, I don't know if they use it or if they don't use it anymore. But when I was in kindergarten, I know that we started practicing in cursive also. right? I don't know if you had the same experience. Right now, I'm not sure if they are still practicing with the children, but this could be like an idea for some of them. Another is the act of composing a piece of text, right? We need to compose something, could be an idea, maybe it could be a story, an experience, like a journal, right? And also act completed by someone else, as in the writing of William Shakespeare, right? So these ideas were just like assumptions for people that they know something about writing and they say that this is right for them, right? So this was just general idea. So we need to consider a lot of things when we want to teach children how to write, right? We need to remember that maybe children, maybe they are trying to learn Spanish, right? You know that children from 5 to 6, they are still learning how to speak Spanish, I mean, the native language. So imagine learning a second language, but writing, right? Imagine this confusion about the children. Maybe if they are bilingual, it could be easier for them. But what happens when these kind of students, they don't know a second language and they are trying to be exposed? It could be very new for them. So take into consideration that they are trying to learn the second language, but also they are trying to learn the native language at the same time, right? Remember that at this age, they are acquiring everything. They are like sponges, right? So we need to be very patient when we are teaching children, right? And also another thing we need to remember, imagine you're in the classroom and you notice that some students, that some children, they have some problems writing in the native language. It could be spelling, it could be the structure, right? So they most likely will have problems in the second language, right? So I once had an experience when teaching children in Relaciones Culturales. I had a problem that I had a children that he didn't know how to write in Spanish, like the spelling, the structure of the sentence. So I was just trying to help him to write in English, but it was the same mistakes, the spelling in English, the structure, it was in disorder. So that's why it's very important to have these patients. We need to assess those kind of students because they might have the same problem in the native language, right? So we need to consider this when we are teaching our students a second language. If they are having problems in the native, it will be most likely that they will have the same problems in the second language, that is English. So let's talk about, so what is writing, right? So in the theory, it says that writing is a combination of process and a product, right? You know this already. You know that writing, we have a process in order to write something. It could be an essay or a short paragraph, but we have this process in order to have the final product, right? So basically the process refers to the act of gathering ideas and working with them until they are presented in a manner that is polished and comprehensible to readers. So you know that when teaching writing, it means that students will have a final product, right? Before that, they have a process, right? First, you need some ideas to brainstorm about what you are going to write. In order with those ideas, you need to work with this process. You know that also the teaching writing at the end of the product is a publishing, right? It means that the students are going to present their writing. Maybe it could be in a meeting with their parents, or it could be like a blog, right? We saw already this kind of information, but here it says that it's going to have to be comprehensible, right? That they can understand what they wrote. And also the process is very useful to young learners. When we talk about process, it doesn't mean that it's because it has to be like that. It means that for children, it's very easy to understand that everything is like a step, right? If you tell the children like, okay, you need to write a story, well, they're going to freak out, right? Because imagine writing a story in English, it could be very difficult for them to process, right? So if you tell them like, okay, so in order to write a story, we have this process, right? And this process is going to help us to create a story, okay? And the first step, for example, is brainstorming, okay? So we need ideas, okay? After that, we have the second step. So imagine if you tell the children that writing a story, it has the steps. It could be easier for them to understand what is going to be the story about, or what is the writing, right? The objective of the writing, right? For example, here it says that in order to cook something, of course, we have the steps, right? We have the ingredients, we have the procedure, and then at the end, we have the final product, right? It's going to be the same when writing a story. First, we need, for example, the characters that are the ingredients, the setup of the story, and then the procedure that is going to be the process of when they are writing a story, and then the product that at the end, they will have the complete story, right? So it's very important for students to basically teach them and also to explain them what is the objective of writing something, right? Okay, so now let's talk about the background, right, to teach writing. So when you're teaching children from 4 to 7 years old, we need to ask these kind of questions to ourselves, right, in order to reflect, in order to write, for example, a lesson plan, or in order to consider what kind of problems they have before teaching writing. Right? For example, here this question says, do your students have the fine motor or physical skills necessary to hold a pencil firmly in their hands and form letters on papers? Right? Some students, for example, they most likely don't know how to hold a pencil or a pen, right? Well, from 4 to 7, maybe they don't use pens because of course the mistakes, but they can use the color pencil or the pencil itself. When I was in kindergarten, you know that I'm a left-handed, so my teachers were trying hard to ask me to use the right hand, right? And when I was using my right hand, of course I was a mess, right? Because I didn't have the same physical skills from my left hand. So that's why we need to observe the children, to observe our students, if they can do this skill, if they can hold the pencil, because we need to teach them how to hold the pencil if they are 4 or 5, right? So before basically teaching them how to write a story, or teaching them how to create something with a paper and a pencil, you need to consider that if they can hold a pencil, right, and form letters also, right? You need to consider this as a very important thing. Another question is, do they have the cognitive skills necessary to formulate ideas and write them onto paper? The physical act of forming letters as well as the act of expressing oneself in written form. We need to consider this also. For example, if you are going to teach children from 4 or 5 years old, maybe they will not have the cognitive skills to write a story, right? So we need to consider this a lot, because maybe we can misunderstand that. I think, yes, they can do it, they can create a story. Well, yes, maybe they can create a story, but do they have the cognitive skills to create one? I mean, they have a lot of imagination, but do they have the structure of the sentences? Do they have the vocabulary to create a story? Well, we need to ask these questions in order to reflect more. Okay? So in the theory, it says that native English-speaking children are usually taught how to print before being taught to write cursive letters, right? And I once, well, in Facebook, I once saw a picture. Now I can't find the picture, but it said that the cursive letters were very important for children because the movement of the hand, they could practice this movement and this skill. But now I don't know if in schools they still teach the cursive letters. I don't know if you, Carmen, your grandson, does he practice with cursive letters? It's just a question, right? I don't know. I'm going to investigate more. And students are taught printed letters first because they resemble letters found in books. It is easier than forming cursive ones, straight lines, and complete circles. So basically, the print letters is this one. For example, my name is Tommy. As you can see, we have straight lines. We commonly use this to write. In the cursive is the one below. My name is Tommy. With the cursive letter, we have the smooth movement of the hand. Sometimes it could be very complicated for children. I know that before they use these cursive letters to write letters, to write documents, right? Nowadays, we use the printed ones, right? Okay, so the development of writing skills. So let's talk about this, okay? So you know that writing, it's a process, right? Writing, it could be for ESL students, it could be for native language speakers, right? And this is to develop the writing skill that is basically expressing in a written paper, right? And so here, for example, in process writing, we are emphasizing in the product that is the fluency, right? So here it says that young children learn to speak fluently, right? But they also need to learn how to write fluently. You know that writing sometimes is not, well, entre comillas, some teachers, they think that it's not that important to teach writing. Why? Because it takes a lot of time, because of the process, and also because, well, we're not used to, we're not used to write. Nowadays we have the cell phone, we have the laptop, and we're just typing, but it's not the same that we done before when we were writing and using the pencil, using the pen, right? We had these skills to pay attention on what you were writing, right? If you were using a pen, you had to pay a lot of attention, because if you had one mistake, you had to correct and write it again, or maybe use the liquid paper, right? Nowadays it's very different. Maybe children, they don't want to write. Maybe some of them, maybe they don't have the writing skills, right? They're holding a pencil or using a paper to write something. Why? Because they have tablets now, they have laptops, they have computer. They are not used to now in order to write. So we need to help them, right? Writing is a universal production, as the same as speaking, right? But writing is going to be very helpful for them, right? For example, right now, we can communicate in a Zoom meeting, Blue Jeans, or in Hangouts, WhatsApp, and we can speak. But what happens if we didn't have this technology? Before, they had to write, right? If the children needs to make an essay, they need to write, maybe typing, but they need a structure, right, in order to write something. So basically, the process, it starts with collecting the ideas by choosing the topic, right? Brainstorming, choosing or selecting what topic you're going to write. And at the end, we have the publish, right? And the product of your writing. And some of the product is going to be for another person to read, right? As I said before, it could be, for example, a meeting with a parents. Maybe you have the evidence that your students wrote something. So when you have this meeting with the parents, well, they can see it on the board or on the wall, right? That they wrote something. Maybe they have a journal, right? How do you feel about emotions? I don't know, right? You know that nowadays we have this topic that is very important, the emotional intelligence, right? So maybe they can write about their feelings. How did you feel today? What did you do yesterday, right? So they have to write like a journal, right? Before it was very common to write a journal. Nowadays, I don't think so, but we can still have this tradition in order for them to write something, and it could be very meaningful, right? So we need to consider that some of the activities that you create, some of them are very focused on the spelling rather than the message, right? They are very important to differentiate. If you are teaching, for example, a lesson, but it is focusing on spelling, well, you need to create the whole activity related to spelling, right? On the other hand, maybe you don't care about spelling because they already have this cognitive skill, maybe they are more advanced. Well, now you can focus on the message, right? And in the message, it means that you need the whole process of writing, right? And we're going to see it in the other slide, I guess. The whole process, let's remember about that. Okay, yes. So here we have a question. You can use the chat in order to answer this. So what are the stages of writing? Okay, maybe you have some ideas. Carmen, yes, I didn't read your message. Yes, he's learning that, but he's struggling a lot. He's confused with print. Yes, exactly. And also students, they might have the confusion about what, I mean, the cursive and the printed letter, like what is the difference? And you know, the movement, the cursive is very smooth. They need to have the hand relaxed. And in the printed, they are straight lines, right? So it's very good for you, Carmen, to have this theory so you can help him more, right? So now a question for you is, what are the stages of writing, okay? So if you don't remember, don't worry, just put some ideas there in the chat and I'm going to explain you. Okay, Carmen, so you said that after the brainstorming, that, okay, we have the first writing and then check and then write again. Okay, we have an idea here. Erika, you said first we have the pre-writing, that could be like brainstorming, the first write, draft, revising, editing, and then the final writing. Okay, very good. So yes, you remember something about the process of writing, I mean the stages. And let me show you here. Here we have the steps. And here, of course, we have the pre-writing. This is the first step. In here, they are going to be prepared before writing something, right? Collect ideas, collect thoughts, right? Here, for example, remember when you have this teaching writing class, maybe you need to engage your students in order to write something, right? Maybe showing videos, showing pictures, right, about a lesson. Right? It could be a story, but you need to engage them and give them vocabulary, right? Eliciting words in order for them to have the idea. And then we have the writing, the first writing, right? Here, for example, in the theory, it says that children write down all of their ideas. They don't worry about form or correctness or even the order. The objective is to get the ideas on paper as quickly as possible. It means that here in the first writing, they will have the opportunity to write a draft, right? The first writing is the draft, right? No corrections. Remember that this is for them to write everything down in the paper. Right? Maybe you can give them like a minute or 2 minutes, right? But the thing here is that they need to write something on the paper. We need to be very careful. You know that with some children, maybe they will have some problems in writing ideas down. So you need to be monitoring them. You need to be monitoring them if they have a question about a word, right? So after writing, we have the revising stage. Here is the initial piece of writing. It's examined and reworked so that the ideas are logical and flow together. So here in revising, we have the feedback, right? It could be, for example, student feedback, putting in pairs or in groups, or the teacher can be monitoring that. It could be very difficult if you have like 40 students in a classroom, right? How can you revise everything, right? So sometimes it's very, if another person is checking them. Sometimes we have like a supportive teacher in some cases, right? So maybe also the support teacher could be with them checking the writing, checking if they have some mistakes just to correct them. So what happens after the revising? They edit again the text, right? This could be the second writing, right? They edit text. here it says in the theory that learners, with the help of their teachers, caregivers, or classmates, proofread their work to make sure that there are not any content errors or grammatical or spelling errors. Right? It's just to write again the ideas, maybe in a new piece of paper, right? Here, they already have this revising stage before, so they know what can they correct, right? And here we have the publish, that is the final product. It could be, for example, here on a special paper, or you can work with a computer, right? In the computer, it could be very different. Why? Because in the computer, they can correct easily the mistakes, right? And if you know, in a Word document, the Word document also corrects you the spelling, and sometimes the structure, if you're missing a comma or I mean, any spelling mistake is going to correct you, right? So here in the publish, remember that if you are going to publish something, it has to be comprehensible. That's why a student needs to work through this process in order to have a correct product, right? So basically, this is the writing process. Let me see if you don't have any questions, just let's see. Okay, let's continue, guys. So here we have some types of written text that children can produce, right? So here, for example, we can have some pimple letters. And in this one, the letters are very common to as a writing activity, right? Well, because it has a purpose. You're going to write a letter for someone. Also, they are very authentic. And also another thing that is very important, it is meaningful for the learner. If you're going to ask the children to write a letter about a friend or about a family member, it's going to be meaningful for them, right? I'm going to write a letter for my sister or for my dad, so they can have this meaningful purpose, right? And here, for example, we have some examples about a letter. For example, as you can see here, we have the supportive language. My name is, I am, my birthday is, and then month, day, year, my favorite color. And at the end, we have dear Juanito, and then they can start writing the letter. And here we have another one. As you can see, check about the supportive language that we have here. It means that children, maybe they are not ready to write a real letter or a complete letter. Why? Because maybe they are missing vocabulary words. Maybe they are missing the structure. So we need to be very careful when we choose the activities, right? If you think that, for example, that children from 7 to 8, they already have this vocabulary. My name is, I am 7 years old, I like the color blue, I have the numbers, the vocabulary about food, right? For lunch, I like to eat, and I like to hobbies, I like to play with. So as you can see here, they already have the vocabulary, right? So they are just trying to type everything, to write everything down. So consider the level of the students, consider the activities that you're going to choose, and if they are ready to write something, if they already have these vocabulary words, right? So we need to consider that. And in theory, it says, and here we have some types of writing that your learners can produce. As you can see, we have a lot of them, so you can have an idea. We have here, for example, magazines, newspaper articles, I think, Father's Day cards, journals, invitations, Mother's Day cards, thank you cards, sympathy cards, signs, slogans, stickers, stories, riddles, rhymes, right? So it's about you, your imagination, your creativity, in order for them to produce something, right? And these activities are in the platform, right? This theory, so you can have more information. So for example, here we have my summer story, right? You know that, in the websites, you can find a lot of templates, right, for students. That's up to you to adapt them. You know that the adapting material, maybe you're having this subject, and sometimes we can't create and we don't have a lot of time to create material for our students, but you can find a material from the websites and adapt it, right? Adapt it according to the level of the students, right? Here, for example, we have some pictures and maybe they can write a story about what is happening, right? But consider also the level, consider what vocabulary they're going to use, right? Remember that we have the controlled writing and the free writing, right? That this one is the free writing, as you can see, my summer story. And control because they have some pictures, they have the sequence of what is happening, right? So consider this. And here we have, depending on the final product that children produce, you may utilize some or all of the steps of the writing process. For example, if children are writing a journal for their own use, then you won't need to worry about editing and publishing the writing because it is not meant to be formally shared with others. However, if you're planning a publishing party to which family and community members are invited, you will want to use all of the steps of the writing process and insist that the final product is as close to perfectly as humanly possible. Right? So for example, if you are going to tell your students to write a journal, sometimes the journals are very personal. So maybe those kind of writings, you don't want to publish them. So here in this case, if you are correcting them, it's going to be very private, right? If you're checking the journals, maybe you can correct the spelling there, but it's up to you. It is up to the student teacher, right? And if you're going to publish something like a story, then in this case, you need the whole writing process because remember that the process is because the objective is to publish to the public that is outside. Right? Maybe for us, for the school project, or it could be for parents, so another class groups, right? But because they will have access to read the stories that your children wrote, right? Just to consider this information. And now, what are we going to do with this theory? And here I have a very interesting video. It is how to encourage pre-writing skills in toddlers and preschoolers. And here this person is going to show you some activities that you can do in order to stimulate basically the pre-writing skills, right? So you're going to watch this video and after that you're going to have a forum. So here you have, as you can see, some questions, you have 5. And after you finish answering these questions, you're going to comment to 2 different people, right? So this is the first assignment, just watching the video and answer the following questions. And the other one is techniques in teaching writing. So here you have here what you're going to read, that is the classroom techniques and activities. So you need to click on the blue words there and it's going to take you to the PDF document. Go to the page 14, right? And after you read this, you're going to answer these questions. Okay? And again, you're going to comment to 2 different people. In this case, in the classroom techniques and activities, you're going to choose one technique or activity that you like the most, that you found interesting, right? Because here we have, what is the name of the technique? Describe the technique. Do you find it useful? Why? Would you implement it into your classes? Yes or no, and why? What would you add to this activity and what would you change? Right? So as you can see, this is after you read the classroom techniques, choose one, and with that one technique, you can answer the questions, right? So I don't know if you have any questions so far about the assignments or about the